Good morning. My name is Sandra Gomez, underma at General Science. My advisor is Professor Ivan Mark S. Sigwa. The title of my paper is Development and Validation of Self-Instructional Module in General Physics for Tertiary Students. To begin with, the background of the study of my paper, the pandemic coronavirus disease or COVID-19 has posed unprecedented challenges in various sectors around the world. The most vulnerable sector that is significantly affected by this phenomenon is the education. The global impact of COVID-19 pandemic has prompted educators to assess their online teaching competence, according to Fauza et al. 2020 and Ladicho 2021. Higher education worldwide is also affected by this thousands of school closures. According to Tokera 2020, Tria 2020, and Plain et al. 2020. The health crisis shifted instruction and education stakeholders' perspective on the types of learning continuity appropriate for students, according to Gonzalez and Lansangan 2020. Student and teachers' face-to-face learning interaction has also stopped, according to Dangle and Sumanog 2020. Without a question, the COVID-19 pandemic has significantly impacted various human activities, including education. According to CHED 2020, the primordial concern of higher education is to avoid and to limit the infection of academic community. As a result, course has ceased immediately when the community quarantine happened. With that, looking for innovative learning modalities become urgent shift from traditional to flexible teaching and learning. Under the CHED Memorandum Order Number 4, Series of 2020, subject to guidelines on the implementation of flexible learning, the implementation of flexible learning as a delivery system will begin at academic year 2020 to 2021. In general, Filipinos have deep regard for education according to Noboya 2019. As the Philippine education system evolves, the Commission on Higher Education recommends that the online platforms and blended learning be strengthened, including but not limited to Google Classroom, Messenger, Facebook, and other social media platforms. A combination of digital and non-digital technology uses also in this flexible learning in higher education. According to CHED chairperson, Dr. De Vera, university and institutions can choose which appropriate is more effective. Aside from the changes and alteration in our education system, the universities and college can also employ only online or modular simultaneously. Some of the use of combination of these two, according to Magsambol 2020. As the coronavirus pandemic continues, schools shifted to distance learning and provided instructional materials to students. According to Bustani, Widodo, and Sumarma 2017, instructional materials plays a crucial role in teaching and learning at all stages of education. They provide also the opportunity for students to extend or to expand and deepen their knowledge. Learning through these printed and digital modules is one of the most popular recent learning methods according to Dangle and Sumanog 2020. Aside from that, physics aims also to develop student reasoning ability through logical thinking skills and systematic thinking, according to Dewey and Primaya 2019. Physics is also considered the most challenging branch of science, according to Akisi and Akasali, Salar, and Turgut 2016. Physics is also one of the most challenging course. It is because of the misunderstanding and misconception due to a lack of clarity of a particular topic in the subject. Some of the reasons are cited. So the complicated subject need detailed design and implementation to improve the student's experience by efficiently replacing the factors included, according to Delgado 2021. Besides, establishing also students' independence in physics lesson needs to be meaningful also, according to Kosra and Ratnawala 2018. Online teaching materials are also sufficient because they provide further instruction in basic mathematics and physics concepts, according to Maradi, Luch, Patterson, and Durban 2018. Additionally, self-instructional modules can also assist students in learning in a more directed and methodological manner, allowing them to acquire the competencies according to Mardika et al. 2020. Now, let us proceed with the review of related literature regarding distance education. Distance education, e-learning, mobile learning, and online learning use this to describe distance, according to Mensa, White, Yankee, and Brown 2020. Several institutes of higher education also have recently opened up a variety of distance education options for students according to Tibikara 2020. The pandemic paved way also the way for distance education to be put into action urgently as a response to ensure educational continuity according to Sumanog 2020. With the advancement and expansion of technology and changing requirements and aspiration of people, distance education system have become a vital aspect of education also. The indicated is a teaching approach where the teacher and the students are physically separated during the lessons according to Caventus Law 2020. Instructors also have a vital role in acting as a change or as a change agent which is aided by ensuring that they have the appropriate prior knowledge to improve the success of the instruction process according to Erdem and Yildiz 2018. Some of the countries also have replaced face-to-face education with distance education as a result of the coronavirus outbreak. The sort of online education differed from traditional distance education. It entered also schooling unexpectedly, unpredictably, and aggressively and has since become a continuous issue, according to Lily, Ismail, Abdunasser, and Al-Katani 2020. Although some of the students and teachers prefer to learn in classroom setting, remote learning has significant advantage also. So with the right technology, teacher training and lesson planning, remote learning may be flexible and effective also. Student and teacher can succeed in remote learning and may be flexible and effective also. Student and teachers can succeed more despite despite of this one. There is also some remarkable success story according to Albach and Dewitt 2020. Access to appropriate technology and internet speed or even access to the internet is a significant hurdle, highlighting underlying inequities among students that led to the failure of this education. According to Gosmer, Bem, Carneo, and De Castro 2017, they revealed also that the academic performance of distance education in the pharmaceutical course was better in the distance education module. So the success and effectiveness of this distance education depend on the study modules according to Jairam and Dorabaru 2020. Next with, let us discuss the development of self-instructional module. Education quality needs to be addressed in several ways, including the availability of appropriate teaching and learning materials per program, according to Geta and Hanner 2021. Modules are one of the teaching tools utilized also by the teachers, according to Pisati, Subati, Yardi, and Marathi 2020. The teaching and learning process can also bring information and knowledge in interaction between teachers and students to achieve a goal, according to Rami and Stevens 2019. Various problems in the learning process need to be harmonized and stabilized so that learning conditions are created by the objective to be achieved and can be obtained optimally. Aside from that, modules are one of the teaching tools also utilized by teachers. According to Suvati and Marathi 2020, in Yanzon 2017 article, the module was deemed to be successful in aiding the learning process during its validation and effectiveness in assessing student learning. Modules are methodologically interesting and organized instructional materials that incorporate the content of the evaluation. Likewise, instructional modules also improve student performance and enable teachers to clarify their lessons, according to Leonen 2016. The teacher enthusiasm in creating and utilizing the instructional materials bridges the learning gap toward achieving the educational objective, learning concepts and mastery of the competence according to Lozano 2020. In the learning process, the module plays also a crucial role. The module allows also the student to learn and learners to assess their learning outcomes according to Zaida and Maharianti 2020. According to Zerman 2018, the availability of the module can make students more independent by incorporating teacher content that students can grasp on their own. Additionally, the instructors arrange the instructional materials mathematically into modules also, including the title, overview, objective, pretest, content, and also the post-test. The self-instructional module is also a type of instructional designs that employs develop resources based on the need of the students, according to Padsing 2021. The success and effectiveness of distance education depend on the study materials by Jairam and Devaro 2020. However, there are also disadvantages and advantages to using module. Without the presence of classmates and teacher who remind the students of their assignment, according to Beiji 2017, they claim that they are more likely to become distracted and forget to track of deadlines. The use of the modules promotes self-directed learning, according to Nardo 2017. Students also self-study or learning skills improve when they use modules for learning. The developed self-instructional modules show its effectiveness in improving knowledge and practice, according to Farag 2019. A practical self-instructional module ought to have the following characteristics. Number 1, self-contained. Number 2, self-explanatory. Number 3, self-directed. And the number 4 is self-evaluating. Self-contained self-instructional module must be prepared with the pre-designed curriculum syllabus in addition to a further reading list for each particular piece of content that is provided. This list should be very relevant and specific to the content also. Self-explanatory, the language is to be simple and lucid. An ample number of example and illustration should be used to augment the learner's perception. Self-directed, learning objectives should be stated clearly and measures should be provided to get whether objectives are obtained. Content is to be broken into smaller chunks for every single concept. Rest gap is to be incorporated by providing questions, quizzes, or practices. Self-evaluating feedback after every short piece of content should be provided also through practice, evaluative questions, quizzes, and practices also. Likewise, the self-instructional module is the backbone of the distance education system. Aside from that, self-instructional module could also be arranged into students to develop a sense of responsibility for their learning, according to Merenya 2021. Kramer, Ross, Plant, and Fishbowl 2018 conducted also a study to investigate the usefulness and effectiveness of self-instructional module for students in an introductory psychology class. Results showed that there is an improvement in the performance in the midterm and the final examination of the students. Another study shows that the self-instructional module was effective in the students' knowledge in the study of Lalzabwe, Kumari, and Gawai 2019. Research has also been undertaken on the impact of self-instructional module on student academic achievement in mathematics. Lim 2016 found that the self-instructional module in teaching are an effective strategy for learning in his study on usefulness of self-instructional module in word problem solving of BEd student. In published paper by Ambayon 2020, college student in literature in the use of self-instructional module has improved from poor to excellent achievement also. Now let us discuss the topic regarding Bachelor of Science in Mathematics or the BS Math. You will be the one to use the preferred self-instructional module for physics. The Bachelor of Science in Mathematics is a degree program in a 4-year course consisting of 135 credit hours. According to CHED Memorandum Order Number 48, Series of 2017, subject to policy standard and guidelines for the Bachelor of Science in Mathematics and Bachelor of Science in Applied Mathematics. It is also included in the non-math foundational courses of BS Math, which are courses that are specific to a discipline outside mathematics that are not part of the general education program. Higher education also offers this course to provide additional skills in a foundation for advanced courses in the context of the Philippines. CHED Memorandum Order Number 46, Series of 2012, otherwise known as the Policy Standard to Enhance Quality Assurance in the Philippine Higher Education through an outcome-based and typology-based quality assurance. It is also stated that there is a standard that needs to follow and should be guided by the OBE framework to ensure the learning outcomes before continuing with the content. In line with this, the CHED Memorandum Order Number 28 Series of 2015, subject to policy, standard, and guidance for Bachelor of Science in Naval Architecture and Marine Engineering or BSNAME program indicated learning outcomes for General Physics 1 course which focus on the following areas of study, which is we have the vector and scalar, graphical method, analytical method, vector subtraction, kinematics, equation of kinematics, freely falling bodies, projectile motion, dynamics, Newton's law of motion, friction, first condition of equilibrium, work, energy, and power, definition of work, energy and power, conservation of energy, impulse and momentum, definition of impulse and momentum, conservation of momentum, collision, coefficient of restitution, rotation, definition of torque, second condition of equilibrium, center of gravity, elasticity, Hooke's law, stress and strain, modulus of elasticity, oscillation, definition of vibration, motion, and simple harmonic motion, kinematics of simple harmonic motion, and simple pendulum. That is the topics that are included according to CHED Memorandum Order Number 28 Series of 2015. Next, next with physics and student performance in physics. Physics is a science that investigates through a series of scientific process based on scientific attitude, with the outcome shown as a scientific product composed of three elements, which is the component, principle, and generally accepted theory, according to Faiza, Suparmi, and Amina 2018, and Dewi, Waita, and Yusmarandi 2021. One of the introductory of physics is also one of the introductory courses also of Bachelor of Science in Mathematics is General Physics or General Physics Mechanics. Physics is a field of study that includes this concept. Aside from that, it is also a discipline that requires learners to employ various methods of understanding and translate from one to the another words, table of numbers, graph, equation, diagram, and maps, according to Ebora 2016. Physics is also an essential element in education of chemists, engineer, computer scientists, and practitioner of the other physical and biomedical sciences, according to Kadsen 2020. But in spite of the importance of physics, it remained the least favored science subject among students generally, according to Patience 2020. Physics is also one of the challenging course because of misunderstanding and misconception due to the lack of clarity on particular topics, according to Kiambao and Punzalan 2019. Many studies also have uncovered misconceptions and difficulties in many branches of physics in mechanics. For instance, the most students face problem with vector, according to Bolen, Campen, Bailey, Kelly, Decock 2017. Polokan and Ruten 2018, Hadiratan 2019, Tyra, Arabi, Rabani, and Hamad 2020, Latifa, Furwanganis, and Sutopo 2021, Jewaru, Kusairi, Pramo Umratul 2021. These are some of the research that prove that there is a difficulty in terms of the topic regarding vector. There is also some of research that provided or that stated that there is also a problem or sometimes students also have difficulty in understanding the topics regarding the kinematics. These are some of the cited researches that I found regarding the difficulty of student in terms of kinematics. So aside from that, there is also study provided that there is also a problem in terms of learning of students in terms of the Newton's law of motion, conservation of energy, impulse and momentum, rotation, elasticity and harmonic oscillation, fluid and solid. And then aside from that, in thermodynamics, students tend to confuse temperature with heat also, according to a fair work et al. 2021. In electricity, students have difficulties dealing with electricity circuits according to Fino 2018 and Ohm's law according to Prasiani, Mru, and Pratana 2019. Those findings show that there are still many misconceptions and difficulties students face in many branches of physics, according to Saifullah, Sutopo, and Wisodo 2017. Aside from that, there is also some previous research show that the student have the initial conception that physics subject is challenging to comprehend and also complex. According to Panyagan, Sanhaya, and Jatmiko 2017. Aside from that, according to ACE and Rolandes 2019, study also about the effect of influence embedded physics instruction on student academic performance. Filipino students suffer from low retention of concept, limited reasoning and analytical skills. This low performance indicator were attributed to the students' view that physics is a challenging science in high school and students became more evasive when they entered college, according to Guido 2018 and Bequin 2019. Some study also show that the unsystematic material sequence in mathematics and physics curriculum is the first problem, and it is the source of all other issues, according to Retnawati, Arlene Wibobo, Wulandri, and Pranadi 2018. Physics is also requires the ability to employ algebra and geometry and the capacity to transition from the specific to general and back to go from the specific to general and back, according to Ebora 2016. There is also some study that were emphasized the need for mathematics in science, with particular reference to physics becoming indispensable. Aside from that, there is also some difficulty in terms of solving problems since they do not grasp and know how to solve them, according to Pardo 2017, Hartika and Humarian 2017. Based on the literature and study presented, it was found that the self-instructional materials occupy an essential position and learning module that can guide teachers to foster valid and effective teaching and learning module that can guide the teachers to foster scientific creativity by integrating appropriate instructional approaches, according to Su and Chin 2018. Based on the study of Busadi 2022, he concluded that the self-instructional module is effectively enhanced student knowledge. However, the unavailability of self-instructional module in general physics for tertiary students was the central encouragement of the researcher to conduct this study. The study focused also on developing a self-instruction module to help students learn the topic at their own pace. Students will have the control also of their learning because this module is self-explanatory, self-contained, self-directed, and self-evaluating. Hence, the researcher believed that the detailed and step-by-step instruction in the module would help the students learn the subject. Lastly, the study will benefit the science physics teacher, non-science teacher who are teaching general physics mechanics, and student in BS Math students who are taking the course. For the research problem, number one, how may general physics self-instruction module for college students be developed? For number two, how may the general physics self-instructional module be validated in terms of content? design and format, and also pedagogy. For the methods, the current study will employ also development and validation of self-instructional module in general physics. This study will also use design and development research. According to Brown and Collins, they first presented the design and development research in 1990. At present, it is amid the main method in educational research to test theory and validate its feasibility. According to Sahir, Alias, Ismail, and Osman, 2012. Furthermore, Ricci 2014 also stated that the design and development research is a sort of question distinctive to instructional design and technology field to the formation of new knowledge and validation of existing method. The researcher will also utilize the design to develop a self-instructional module in general physics with a subject matter based on the outcome from the content validity tool. Afterward, the materials that will be developed, which is content are based on the quantitative data, will be validated with another type of evaluation tool. The design and development research have the researcher to outline the procedure, technique, and tools established in an actual process of identifying and evaluating what should be performed. For the validators, the researcher will use purposive sampling in choosing the validator for the self-instructional module. Two sets of validators with their approval will be needed for the study. The first set, composed of 10 general science physics teachers, will evaluate the essential and non-essential topics to be included in the material developed using the law sheet content validity. Furthermore, with regards to the second set of validators, they will validate the content, format, and design, and pedagogy of the self-instruction module that will be developed. It will also include one doctor in physics, one coordinator in science, and 8 subject teachers who have been teaching physics for more than 3 years and above. For the instrument, to determine the validity and acceptability of the self-instructional module, the researcher will utilize also evaluation instrument for topics to be included in the DE or ODEL module and evaluation rating sheet for DE and ODEL provided by the College of Education of Pampanga State Agricultural University. The first tool used by the first set of validators will also determine if the topics included were essential and non-essential. The content validity ratio or CVR was also determined using the essential and were determined using the formula. The CVR is equals to NE minus NN2 and N2, where the NE is the number of panelists who indicated essential and then the N is the total number of panelists. On the other hand, the second tool will be evaluating the self-instruction module in terms of the following parameters: the content, design, and pedagogy using the evaluation rating sheet for DE and ODEL modules. Each parameter will consist of items, description which could be rated as yes or no. Yeah. For the procedure, since this study was about developing and validating of self-instructional module in general physics for tertiary students, specifically for BS Math lecture class, the researcher will identify 20 experts and validators and ask permission to administer and conduct the study. Once approval has been granted, the researcher will begin to work on the instructional module work carried out based on Hanafin and Peck design model. The Hanafin and Peck design model involve also 3 essential stages. Number 1, the assessment. Number 2, the design. And number 3, the development. Each followed by a thorough evaluation and revision process. Guided by the design, the researcher is moved to develop a module. For the development, guided by this design, the researcher is moved to develop a module. First thing, the planning phase or the development phase, the researcher will scrutinize learning resources and related materials for the self-instruction module in general physics mechanics for BS Math lecture. The researcher will also refer to and examine the learning outcomes and topic in the self-instruction module based on CHED Memorandum Order Number 28, Series of 2015. and the outcome-based teaching and learning plan of different colleges and universities. At this stage, the researcher goal is to determine which topic should be included in the self-instructional module. Following that, we'll proceed to the designing and developing phase. In the designing and developing phase, the researcher will adopt the parts of the self-instructional module based on the components of Grosser 1981, which include the title, overview, objective pretest content, post-test, and also feedback. For the phase 3, validation phase, will occur after developing and designing the instructional module in general physics. And then lastly, then phase 4 is the finalization phase, which the instructional module will be finalized based on the output. For the validation phase, it will be included the set of validator that consists of one doctor in physics, one coordinator in science, and 8 subject teachers. Yeah. Lastly, for the statistical tools or statistical treatment, the researcher will also employ the following statistical treatment in interpreting the data of the content validity ratio. Yeah. For the results of the study, in the development of self-instructional module, first one, how may general physics self-instructional module for college students be developed? In total, there are 58 learning outcomes coming from different university and colleges, and also CHED memorandum order that are indicated. Based on the evaluation of the evaluators, 41 of them are considered as essential learning outcomes, and then 17 of them are considered as non-essential learning outcomes. In the table 1.2, learning outcomes in midterm in BSMA General Physics, these are the listed learning outcomes. Review and applied selected mathematical concept received negative 0.2. It means it is not essential, or it will not be included in the prepared or in the module that will made. Use a geometrical interpretation of vector subtraction to find the resultant vectors, also evaluated as not essential. Defining motion, speed, and velocity, solve problems on dynamic rotation, explain the concept of inertia gave by example, explain the static and dynamic equilibrium, compute the work done on a body, they are concluded as not essential. Teaching today's student has been perennial a challenge for teachers, especially in presenting them with the essential competencies to be more internationally competitive and functionally literate in science. According to De Los Santos Lim, Rogayan 2021. The table 1.2 shows that there are 28 learning outcomes for midterm. Out of 28 learning outcomes, 7 learning outcomes evaluated it as non-essential. According to Shaw 2017, each outcome should point to important categories of content or conceptual piece in a course that will help students recognize the big ideas. Based on the evaluation of the validator 3, they commented that you may integrate also few topics in kinematics like UIM, projectile, then rotation, so you have ample time in the discussion of elasticity, oscillation, and fluid. The topics are always left behind, and their physical application should be given importance as we can obviously see them in daily application. Based on the result, 2 learning outcomes in kinematics received the highest CVR, which means it is an essential topic. According to Ole and Gallos 2021, it is a fundamental structure in mechanics, and it is a vital subject that the student must grasp to analyze more complex topics in physics. Validator 6 and 7 also commented on the learning outcomes that there are topics that you can combine the lesson, like for example the subtopics for the vectors and vector subtraction. In table 1.3, learning outcomes on the final terms in BS Math General Physics are shown in the figure. So um, according to the table, there are 30 learning outcomes for the finals, and then 10 of it evaluated as non-essential topics. Most of the learning outcomes evaluated as non-essential topics are under the topic of work, energy, and power. According to Prasmeti, Maudi, and Setio Widodo 2016, work energy is one of the fundamental concepts of physics and concept of science that crosses all discipline and deals with everyday life situation. Overall, there are 58 learning outcomes taken from CHED Memorandum Order Number 28, Series of 2015, and outcome-based teaching and learning plan of different colleges and universities. 10 general science and physics teachers who handle the specific field identify these essential and non-essential competencies using Gaussian content validity. Out of 58 learning outcomes, 41 learning outcomes receive CVR values more significant than the minimal value of CVR of 10 expert, which is 0.62. It indicates also that these learning outcomes were essential to include in the module. On the other side, 17 learning outcomes had a CVR score below the minimum. The module did not cover this learning characteristic because they were deemed unnecessary. According to validator number 8, he or she suggests that in the making the module, focus on the most essential learning outcomes as much as possible, limit the number of learning objectives in each part of the lesson, include the core concept of the lesson, provide simple problem solving and common and contextualized application of the concept to the student. In table 2.1, the data presented in the developed module in general physics for tertiary students as validated by expert for content. So this one will answer the statement of the problem, how may the general physics self-instruction module be validated in terms of content. Yeah. So under the content, there are also some topic, lesson included, module that are very relevant to the main goal of the course and greatly contribute to the achievement of the specific lesson objective. For 1.2, the module provide information that are very important and useful to students who will be utilizing it. For 1.3, adequate information is being provided in every lesson with links and reference included to students for further research activities. 1.4, the content is presented clearly using the language that is understandable and suited to the level of the target learners. 1.5, the knowledge and ideas being presented in every unit are accurate, recent, and free from errors using terminologies that suit the distinct characteristic of the target learners. Ayan. Next thing, table 2.1. Table 2.1 following the result revealed also a frequency of 10 for all expert criteria on the content of the self-instruction module in general physics. All validators agreed that the module met all the requirements, including the first factor. According to Gafaron, Sela, Warsono, and Sofwan 2016, adequate instruction resources in language education must shape by several elements including teacher, learner, and contextual variables. The result also supported Sebastian 2017 recommendation that the module materials must write in clear, accurate language appropriate for the target learner's level. It means that the lessons included in the module were in line with the learning outcomes developed for for BS Math student. Each lesson content allows student to achieve the lesson specified objective. The study finding also indicate that the content in the self-instruction module was relevant, useful, adequate, and accurate to BS Math student who will use it. It also contains additional reference that the student may use for further learning to understand the concept found in each lesson. Moreover, the result of the study also indicate that the content of the self-instructional module by presenting language and terminologies that are easy to understand and suited for BS Math student. For the next table, to answer the research problem on how may the general physics self-instructional module be validated in terms of design and content, table 1.2 shows that um, table 2.2 or data presented according to RAIN 2016, students learn from courses that represent knowledge visually according to numerous research. The result also show that the graphics included in the self-instructional module, such as visual, were compelling and relevant. There is also some validators who validated as no for the textual information that are present clearly with appropriate choice of font, size, and style, including the formatting features that could be enhance the appearance of the text. Proper spacing is observed in between the text sentence and paragraphs, included the margin and indentation of to avoid congested pages also. Some of the validators also suggest to adjust the margins and also the spacing of the module to 1.5 to achieve the 2.1 and 2.2. After revisioning the module was also sent again to the validators to validate again, and then after the second evaluation, it already received yes from the validator, which indicating that we already achieved the design and also format that are indicated for this one. Next thing, for the topics regarding how may general physics self-instructional module be validated in terms of pedagogical. So for this one, the table shows that we achieve all the indicated topic or the indicated factor for the modules. Aside from that, there is also expert evaluation shows that the pedagogy of the self-instruction module in general physics are based on the result. So there is also some commented from validator. Number 3 that also said the module is learner friendly, an essential factor in getting the student focus and attention. Learning activities para to the learning objectives are also included in the self-instructional module, supporting the study of Bashir 2016 that there is a great importance of feedback, improving the learning experience of student. According to validator number 9, he or she said that the pre-test and post-test mirror each other, which is a good thing to know the learning gained by students. The self-instructional module will also provide assessment tool that encourage more cognitive processing and help learners distinguish between what they need to learn and what they already know. For the conclusion, um, upon doing the research, these are some of the conclusions that were come up or made. Number 1, the process of developing learning material necessary requires systematic and organized procedure that ensure material quality. Number 2, all of the expert evaluators agreed that the self-instructional module in general physics met all the criteria found on the evaluation instrument, namely content, design, format, and pedagogical. For the recommendations, these are some of the recommended these are some of the following recommendations that are made based on the study of the findings and also conclusions. Number 1, the self-instructional module may be incorporated into teaching and learning process to motivate learners and enhance their learning skill and critical thinking. Number 2, the self-instructional module can be used also by the BS Math student as sufficient learning materials. Number 3, for future researchers to test the effectiveness of the self-instructional module, it should be also used by an experimental group and test if the self-instructional module are valid or if it affects the student performance in learning after using it. Yeah. So that will be all for my paper about development and validation of self-instructional module in general physics for tertiary students. Thank you for listening.